Welcome once again to DAZN Mixed Martial Arts. Sean O'Connell and Dan Hardy here. Looking around the internet, I found a few things that I found interesting. I want to run through these with Dan Hardy. And maybe I'm cheating a little bit because the first one I didn't just find on the internet, right? I mean, most of us in the mixed martial arts world, fans of the sport, at least took a little bit of time this past Saturday night to watch UFC in London. Tom Aspinall, heavyweight prospect, returning against Marcin Tybura and putting on an absolutely phenomenal performance. Flawless victory in some ways for Tom Aspinall. And people got really, really excited about what this means for him and what this means for the heavyweight division in the UFC. First of all, your thoughts on his performance, your thoughts on Tom's fight.
I mean, flawless, as you said, is the right word to use. I mean, I don't even think he got hit with a single strike, did he? It was very, very impressive. Was it one strike? Was there?
Go back and watch. He got hit one time. So
oh well, hang on a minute. Well,
not perfect
then.
if you get hit one time. All right.
Okay. Well, let's backtrack on all the hype then.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just thought he looked great. He was so calm all the way through fight week, kind of like this kind of knowing smile all the way through fight week. You can clearly tell that he'd made some changes in his training camp that have changed the way that he was feeling about the fight. I just felt it was a very kind of calm, clean. He knows what he's capable of. He looks at these heavyweights and sees the problems that they present for him, but also knows that he's got all the skills that he needs to solve those problems. I mean, and straight away on the mic afterwards, he wants to be in Paris for Cyril's fight and watch that one, beat the winner of that, and then John Jones. Like, he's not waiting around. And honestly, it's believable. You watch that performance and you think, well, he's got the movement of Cyril, he's got the power, he's got the ground game. He could be the problem for John Jones.
I like his confidence. Obviously, it was an incredible performance. And look, Tybura, people won't talk about him, but he's very quietly been in the top 15 at heavyweight for like 6 years now. You know what I mean? He's a really good fighter. To derail a hype train, that's not my job. To maybe put some brakes on it and to slow it down a little bit, I'm going to play the bad guy here, all right? Because I know everyone's excited about the possibilities of a young rising heavyweight. I know everyone's excited about, like, oh my God. I saw people tweeting out, we have never seen a heavyweight as athletic as Tom Aspinall before. I'm like, what are we? Okay, don't do that, right? Because he is great. And I have nothing negative to say about his abilities or his athleticism or anything else. But to use superlatives like we've never seen this before, you've never seen it, like in your particular MMA gym, maybe, but we have seen it on the world stage. We have seen heavyweights that look like this. And part of the reason that Tom can have a performance like that against someone like Tybura is all skill, right? He's an all skill-based fighter. He has the athleticism of the Uber driver that dropped you off at the airport. That's not an insult to him, because it's amazing what he's been able to do with the God-given gifts he has versus the skills he's developed. Marcin Tybura being where he's at is such a testament to his work ethic. Yeah, Tom is one of these guys, and I say this all the time for American fans. If he had been born in the United States, he never would have sniffed the sport of mixed martial arts, okay? Because he would be a linebacker in the NFL or something like that. That's just how it is. Same is true with Francis Ngannou. Same is true with Cyril Gane, right? I want to see Tom Aspinall, who I believe has the skill set. When you put him in there with someone who's of like athleticism, then we can start gassing up the hype train, right? Because he is so much more quick, explosive, athletic than Marcin Tybura, and he's every bit as skilled. So we see what happens when you put two people who have similar skill sets, but one of them is of an elite athletic class, and the other is less than that. So absolutely, I want to see him fight the winner of UFC Paris. And absolutely, if he wins that, I want to see what he can do against John Jones. But before we crown somebody, we never did it with anyone else who beat Marcin Tybura. We've never said anyone else who beats that guy is now ready for a title shot. So let's pump the brakes on Tom Aspinall. Even though I think he's great, let's calm ourselves down a little bit.
Hey, I don't mind any of that. You make a lot of sense with everything you've said. Just that occasionally there's someone that comes along, like Chimaev beating, I think was it John Phillips in his UFC debut. As soon as people watched him, they were like, okay, he could be a contender, and we still feel like he might be a contender. Like sometimes you just kind of feel that potential in someone, and I agree with what you say. And like for like skills with Tybora, the difference was the athleticism, but then everybody else I look at in the heavyweight division, I can't check all of the boxes, right?
You're
Like
right.
I look at Cyril and I go, he moves well, he's a great athlete, he's got decent power, he's got good striking, he's got good movement. But we know that he's got a hole in his game that was exploited, and I feel like Tom could exploit that hole in his game. Like you look at John Jones, you go, well, he's a very, very creative mixed martial artist. He's long and he's rangy, etc., etc. But he doesn't tick any boxes, in my opinion, that Tom doesn't tick, aside from experience for John Jones, experience at the top level. Like, Stipe, same thing again. He's got good technical experience, but he's an older guy. He's not particularly athletic, compared to some of the other heavyweights that he's faced. Ngannou, incredibly athletic, not technically fantastic in any range. You know what I mean? Like this is the thing with Tom Aspinall. And I do agree, if he'd have been born in a different country, he would have most likely been playing a bigger sport with, more money in his pockets right now. But he was born in the UK with a dad who was a jiu-jitsu coach who's instilled martial arts into him since he was a little kid. I agree with what you're saying. There is a lot of excitement around him, but I'm willing to be excited because I can see that potential, even though he hasn't got the opportunities yet to prove how great he is. I do feel like that greatness is in his future.
Look, I'm not the enemy of fun, so I think it is good that we
You're
can
definitely
identify
not.
that we can identify somebody who's like, hey, maybe he is next at heavyweight. I love that because the UFC desperately needs it, right? John Jones has basically said, for all of Tom Aspinall's best laid plans, John Jones is saying, I'm going to retire after I beat Stipe. That's in my home state. I want to be done, right? Now, we know that with the right amount of money and all that kind of stuff, John Jones will very easily be enticed out of his pseudo-retirement if he even ever enters into it, right? I like that we can identify a maybe what's next, but I want to see him against the winner of UFC Paris. Like, he's an excellent talker, right? He looks the part. Pavlovich might not be as good at cutting a promo, but that guy is scary, right? So Pavlovich versus Aspinall, I think Pavlovich is going to beat Cyril Gane. So I want to see that, and then winner take on John Jones if John Jones is even around. I'm going to be patient with this process because we've done it too many times in the sport of mixed martial arts. We've done it too many times at heavyweight where we say, ooh, that person right there. That person is the next big superstar. I hope you're right when you say it about Tom Aspinall, because it would be phenomenal for the UK, for the fight scene over there. It'd be phenomenal for him as an individual. It'd be phenomenal for Dan Hardy, because then we can fire up this particular podcast where I said, hey, pump the brakes. And he's like, no, it's there. I hope you're right. That brings us to another heavyweight who's been making news. Francis Ngannou wants to fight John Jones. We want Francis Ngannou to fight John Jones. But right now, the order of business for Francis Ngannou is Tyson Fury in Saudi Arabia in October in a boxing match. And Francis has said, I'm never going to see him in mixed martial arts. Fury is never going to return the favor. The quote was, that would be suicidal, which I think is phenomenal. Like that's a great way to put it. And it's a great way to potentially entice someone with the ego of Tyson Fury to try it out. But he also, Francis appears, took some of Dan Hardy's advice and is seeking out a little mentorship from one of the great heavyweight boxers of all time, one of the most explosive punchers of all time, Mike Tyson.
Amazing. I mean, for someone who has the physical capabilities of Francis Ngannou to team up with someone like Mike Tyson, who, through Cus D'Amato was taught how to control that immense amount of power that he's got. The one thing I feel like Ngannou's never had is someone just to nail him down, to make sure that his movement is supportive of his power punching. like the one thing that we love about him is that there's that unpredictability where he charges forward and just, smacks somebody with a wild shot and turns him into a Pez dispenser. But in a boxing match against someone like Tyson Fury, he's going to have to keep his elbows tight, and he's going to have to start thinking about playing the long game a little bit. Like Mike Tyson knew he had world-ending power, but he also knew that he was shorter and height disadvantages compared to some of the guys that he was fighting, especially when he was 18 and fighting full-grown heavyweights. Like, he had to lean on the abilities that he had. And then you look at Francis Ngannou compared to Tyson Fury, and you think to yourself, well, there's a height disadvantage for him. He's going to have to get around the jab of Tyson Fury. Like, it makes sense. Work that peekaboo style. Mike Tyson can get him moving his feet a little bit. And then it's not even like he's going to use these skills in a boxing match and then just leave him in the ring next time he gets into the smart cage. Like, then you've got a Mike Tyson trained Francis Ngannou in 4-ounce gloves. That is even more terrifying. It's exciting. I mean, it's a great move, and I really hope he gets some good coaching pointers from Mike Tyson. And it's also worth mentioning as well, Mike Tyson's training with Rafael Cordeiro. So it's like, you've got Muay Thai coaching boxing, which is now coaching a mixed martial artist in boxing. It's a really interesting combination of athletes and coaches, and there'll be nothing but benefits for Ngannou for sure.
People, every time Mike Tyson puts out a video of him like hitting pads or hitting a heavy bag or something, everyone goes, oh my gosh, Mike Tyson in his 50s has still got the power. And look, it's true. You can see, but I, like everyone else who watched Mike Tyson's prime, I was young then, but, watched the replays even as we both got older. The first thing that jumps out is like, watch the punch land and watch the way that the other person's soul leaves their body and be amazed by that power, right? But after you've been in combat sports for a while, you start to pay attention to more of the things that Mike Tyson did to set up those just thunderous hooks and vicious uppercuts. And this metronome body movement that he over-exaggerates in all of his training videos, and even still when he's hitting a heavy bag in his 50s, right? That's something that most of us in the sport of mixed martial arts lack completely. It's certainly something that isn't part of Francis Ngannou's game, and it's absolutely the thing that allowed Mike Tyson to set up those punches and to avoid those long jabs and what you're talking about. So if even just that thing, go watch your Mike Tyson videos. I'm telling you, people, pull it up on YouTube, right? Don't pay attention to the punch landing. Pay attention to the 5 seconds before. And it's Mike Tyson's head moving off the center line like this over and over again, very aggressively. And that loads up his hips and loads up his legs to uncurl with crazy power. If you can give Francis Ngannou just a little more of that than he's already got on his movement, that becomes a very dangerous individual. Dangerous enough that you're going to knock out Tyson Fury? Yeah, maybe, who knows? But goodness gracious, to the point you made, what does that look like when he steps back into mixed martial arts? Terrifying. The last thing I want to talk about that we saw on the internet, this is from Titan Fighting Championships in Florida. Regional show that's put a lot of good talent into bigger shows, including the PFL, including the UFC. Actually, Kayla Harrison, our very own Kayla Harrison from the Professional Fighters League, was on the commentary team for this Titan FC event I think it was in Hallandale, Florida, which is a Miami suburb. And there was a fight that is going viral because of one of the old sly moves that you see in mixed martial arts, especially in a small cage, right? It's being classified as the fastest knockout ever in the history of the sport. They called it a 1-second head kick knockout. I think if we took a real stopwatch to it, it might have been longer than 1 second, but good for Titan because it's putting the headlines out there. The fake touch gloves and then the high kick, Dan Hardy. I want to know your thoughts on this because technically, defend yourself at all times from the beginning, that opening bell, all the way to the end of the fight.
Yeah, it's a good debate point, I feel, in mixed martial arts, but I don't feel like there's a right or wrong answer. I mean, ultimately, it happened to me once in my career. I walked out to touch gloves and the guy came out as if he was going to touch gloves, bowled a big right hand over the top and kind of knocked me off balance more than anything because I wasn't expecting it, and then drove me into the fence with a double leg. And You know what I mean? Like I was annoyed at him for a moment, but then I was annoyed at myself. Like the moment where you touch gloves is right before the fight, you know. And if you don't get to touch gloves there, then do it afterwards. I'm not a fan at all of touching gloves once the fight started. The whole high fives and fist bumps and hugs and stuff. Like that, it's just not me. I'm not there for those kind of interactions. Even if it's somebody that I like and respect, I don't want to open myself up in those circumstances. Like you just for a moment let your guard down, and you can't push against it because, as you said, defend yourself at all times. You know, if somebody uses that tactic against you, yeah, you might feel like it was kind of a mean thing to do, a bit unsportsmanlike, but you're the one on the end of the knockout, and ultimately it sits on your record. So, you know, just don't ever leave yourself open in those circumstances. Touch gloves another time, but between the bells, be ready to fight.
Yeah, I was also hit with one of these in my career, fighting against the southpaw, which was already a challenge for me. I never got good at fighting southpaws, but he came out, faked the glove touch, and hit me with a spinning back fist. It didn't end up changing the complexion of the fight all that much, but it was one of those things that I was like, what the hell? And I stopped touching gloves at the beginning of the fight after that because it wasn't illegal, right? What we saw in Titan FC and what Joseph Henley did to me on a local show, that wasn't illegal. It was just like, I don't know, questionable maybe, but my fault for not defending myself at all times. Weirdly, and probably contrary to the way that you feel about it, like after that, I wouldn't touch gloves at the beginning of a fight, but after we'd kind of settled in, if we made it to the second round or the third round, and you kind of understood, all right, there's some sportsmanship here, there's a little mutual respect we probably gained for one another in that first or second round, then I would touch gloves, which is probably just as stupid, maybe even more so. but I would very pointedly not touch gloves at the beginning of a fight after I got hit with that, and then, you know, beginning of the third round, we've had an epic fight so far. I'd be like, all right, give me a hug, let's go. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's become kind of like part of the culture of the sport, and I don't know why. I don't know why people decided that after the referee tells you to touch gloves, then you do it again. But we just have done it as kind of I don't know, as a sport. And I even find myself on the commentary desk noticing if guys do or do not touch gloves to begin a round, probably because of the same reasons that we are talking about with this Titan FC thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a minor thing, really, but there's so much on a glove touch. You know, even before the fight starts, the one that always sticks out in my mind is Gilbert Burns against Kamaru Usman, because they were training partners, they were teammates, and even when the referee brought them together at the start of the fight, and before the fight started, Burns offered his glove and Usman didn't, and like you could see Gilbert Burns was like visibly wounded by it. Like his face, he was upset. It was like, and I'm not making it up. Like I can just read the micro expression on his face. He was upset the fact that they weren't friends at that point. And I like that mindset from Usman. You know, like I understand what you're saying, you know, like, because there is a familiarity that you gain with someone after you've been fighting with them for a few minutes. So, you know, no glove touch in the first round, glove touch in the second, little cuddle at the third. I don't know what you get into in your championship rounds, but
big spoon, little spoon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I like to, I mean, it's just from that particular time it happened. And after that, I thought to myself, if ever I got hit with that again, it would be, I can't even put any negative energy in my opponent's direction, because I have opened that door for myself. And, you know, it just kind of changed my perspective on it from that point onwards. I don't even want that debate after a fight, whether it was the right thing to do or not. And I would never do it myself either. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's just not in my, it's a bit like, you know, when you look at someone and you can tell, like, okay, this guy I'm fighting this weekend, I can tell he's using steroids. You know what I mean? There's different ways of looking at it. You go, well, that's like, I feel that as a weakness, you know, same as if, like, when it happened to me, I walked out and he went to touch gloves and then swung a big shot. That shows me a psychological weakness, because it means they're trying to one up me in you know, in a kind of gotcha way. And I don't need gotcha to beat you. Does that make sense? It's like a,
Yeah.
it's
No,
like a, you know,
I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. It's one of those things where if you feel like you have to use that split second of surprise, that's your best chance of getting a win. You're probably not as confident as you should be. Maybe that speaks to a lack of preparation or just a lack of confidence in your skill or whatever it is. But regardless, it's not the first time we've seen something like this in the sport of mixed martial arts. You've seen it at very high levels, right? You've seen it in the PFL, you've seen it in the UFC, you've seen it in Bellator. Don't do it. All right. Just like the public service announcement for fighters, especially fighters on the rise, either decide you're going to touch gloves and do it the right way, or decide you're not going to touch gloves. Those are both acceptable outcomes. There's nothing wrong with doing either of those things. Faking like you're going to touch gloves to get the distance and maybe the timing so that you get a free shot in a fight is stupid. And Luis Hernandez is the name of the fighter who pulled this off. Like, you didn't do anything illegal, okay? So your win stands, but I'm never going to give you the fastest win in mixed martial arts, okay? Because I don't think it really was a 1 second head kick knockout, all right? I'm not giving that to you, especially because of the bad sportsmanship, all right?
yeah.
That's where I stand.
We're not mad. We're just disappointed.
We're sending you to Dan Hardy's principal's office. It's going to be great.